month at our reorganization meeting, I said to the entire board that we need to utilize the strengths of each other and work together. Yet at the meeting on January 12th, I was completely shut out of board deliberation with a motion made by the vice president, someone who had complimented Ms. Arminio in the 2020 campaign for asking a lot of questions at public meetings so that public could be aware of this information, which was a comment that I fully agreed with. I had raised my hands earlier in the board deliberation, but another board member was called upon, which is completely fine. All board members have the right for that. But once I stated that I still had comments, it was disrespectful to be refused. The Code of Ethics, letter D, states, I will carry out my responsibility not to administer schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. There are many times when I do email questions before meeting, and in fact, this was one of these cases, as I had asked several questions that were then shared with the full board. But there are also times when either additional information becomes present and times when more questions arise. Such was the case on January 12th. To be clear, my intent was never to attack the referendum plan, as was said on social media. I am not a puppet of the Democratic Party, as was said on social media. To be frank, while I believe the board should be completely nonpartisan and a party affiliation shouldn't matter, I am registered as an independent, and there have been times where I have voted for Democrats, there have been times when I voted for independents, and there's times when I voted for Republicans. While, to be clear, I did vote no on the referendum vote along with 2 other board members in February of 2022, I am very well aware that once the majority of the board approved this, my role as a board member is to follow suit, which is why I voted yes in September when we were voting on sending the proposal to the state. My questions for that night were not to start attacking the referendum plan, but based on information we had received a few days before the vote. One was that when we had our resolution that we voted on in September, it said, the Board of Education hereby authorizes the architect to submit to the DOE for approval school facilities project applications for the following projects. Letter A, the construction of additions with alterations to the Monroe Township High School. Letter B, construction of an addition with alterations to the Monroe Township Middle School. And letter C, the construction of an addition with renovations to the Applegarth Elementary School. These were listed as 3 separate projects on that resolution, and so as a board, to my knowledge, we never discussed the wording or layout of the ballot question. I did confirm this with 2 other current board members who were also on the board last year. While I'm well aware of the needs at all 3 schools, and I'm well aware that we need additional space for our students, there has been public feedback that have shown some may vote no to the entire project if Applegarth was included. Therefore, my question was going to be, based on the application we were submitting, was there any modifications that could be made to that resolution? And the only other question I had planned was to say that in the 3rd one, it says that we as the board agree not to appeal the initial decision by the state in regards to the amount of funding we'd get. As a board member, all I have seen as far as documentation from the state was that letter with the numeric amounts, as well as a simple checklist that we voted on in our special meeting. As elected officials, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our taxpayers to try and save as much money as possible. And so my question was, assuming that any correspondence with the state would have been shared with the board, and these were the only letters we had received, why we were not appealing this initial decision, which provided $0 for both the middle school and high school, and if there was a way to revise things so that we may get additional funding from the state, which we all know has been a long problem. In addition, I don't use social media to make my decisions as a board member. Quite frankly, I use it to share pictures of my kids with family and friends and for occasional recommendations by fellow community members. However, I was sent an article of a direct quote by Ms. Shanley that concerned me in a newsletter, and I did just want to get clarification. It said, it's my understanding that if the referendum were to fail, we would immediately go out for a referendum again, and then we would seek counsel to find out exactly what takes place if the referendum were to fail again. I wanted to know why, if the referendum fails, we would not seek input from the public, from the people who are paying for this referendum and the people who voted it down before putting it out again. Wouldn't we also need to vote as a board before automatically putting this out again? In